on top of our head. Or, as I saw getting done once, you can actually have hair tattooed onto your
Yes.
head. And I only know this because next to where I had my office in Bistrica was a beauty salon,
Uh-huh.
and there was a window. And when I walked past the window, sometimes I saw people getting
Mm.
hair
Mm.
tattooed onto their head. Now I don't. Yeah. If ever there was a sign that somebody had psychological problems, right, that would that would be the basic sign. Yeah,
Mm.
that I understand, cosmetics and images and wanting to look good, and we all want to look good, right? Naturally, it's just we all love aesthetics and everything is beautiful,
Mm.
but there are things that we have to live with as well. Our our height, our teeth, our ears, our hair, our nose, all of these things that are part of ourselves that if we study too much any one part, we go, oh my God, I'm ugly. Right? Because like for me, like my ears like kind of stick out a bit like an elephant's ears. My
Uh-huh.
nose is not straight, then it kind of goes off to one side. My teeth look like I've been in 100 street fights. um, I've got strange scars and various parts on my on my face. I would be really good as a bad guy in a horror movie. They wouldn't need to give me too much makeup or dress me up. They just put me in front of a camera and I go "Rrrr," and uh, and that would be it. One of my eyes is bigger than the other eye.
Mm.
Seriously. Yeah, it's like perfect symmetry doesn't exist
Yes.
um, in the human face. But also, the same studies also show that you are considered to be more beautiful if you are more balanced.
Mm.
Well, naturally, if you've got one eye up on your head and one eye down by your
Yeah.
chin, people consider you less beautiful.
Mm.
Um, and that will create visual spatial problems with the person's focus on things as well. And there are people who have to live with that um, every day, and it's crazy. I think about stuff like that. I think about how grateful I am to be me with all my problems, because there's always some poor motherfucker out there, excuse my language, who's got it worse than me, right? There's always somebody who's got it worse. There's people who look like aliens from other planets. Their head
Mm.
is really big and their body is really small, and it must be really tough for there's people with no arms and no legs. Yeah. There's one famous motivational speaker who has no arms and no legs, and I don't know how he gets on stage. I have no idea, but somehow he gets on stage and he speaks, and I think he's Australian, and he's fantastic. So yeah, there's always somebody with some something worse going on, right? You think you had a bad day. It's interesting. I read a conversation the other day, and let me let me tell let me tell you a secret. It's not really a secret, but I just want to make it sound interesting. When I was a kid, I had my favorite music groups, and when you're young, you don't know how big the world is and how much of everything
Mm.
exists. You kind of have this sort of small box that you live in. And So I liked rock music. I don't know why I liked rock music. I just liked rock music. The energy, the passion, the danger, the excitement, maybe.
Mhm.
And so I liked Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, and all those 80s rock bands. And I
Mhm.
liked Queen as well. And that was a strange one because they were never really a sort of mainstream normal band in a way. They always did weird and interesting and different stuff, and their whole story was terribly tragic. Um, and the reason why I'm talking about this is that there's always somebody who's got it worse. Yeah. So there's this story that one day, and they were, after working in the studio all day working on songs, the band go out for a meal, and they're sitting around like big table, and they're sitting around and eating food and talking, and they're all like talking about problems that they have. Yeah. And one of them's like, oh, I've got a cold, and oh, geez, another one, somebody else say, you think that's bad, I got a friend who's really, really sick, and blah 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 blah. And Freddie Mercury is sitting there, and he says, guys, 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 and he takes his leg and he puts his leg on the table and he rolls up his trousers, and his leg is there's just this huge like gashing hole in his leg that's festering because he's dying, right?
Mhm.
He had the immune deficiency syndrome, and he was dying, and basically his body was falling apart. Yeah. And Freddie's like, guys, you think you have problems? Yeah. And I was like, he was dying, and like the rest of the band are like, fuck. Right. And then the story is that he put his leg down and everyone continued talking as if there was no problem because nobody really knew what to say. And and it, I only remember that because I came across that story about a week ago. I knew that I'd heard that story years ago, but I came across it again about a week ago when I was reading something, and I was like, "Wow, you think you've got it bad? There's always somebody who's got it worse." Yeah, there's always somebody who's trying to deal with something more or something harder. Or if I think about my life and the problems I have in my life, yeah, and then I think about my parents, right? They're like 70, I forget how old they are now,
Mhm.
77, something like that. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, I'm thinking it's hard because I was sitting talking to them. Here's a little, very short story. I was sitting
Mhm.
talking to them last week in the flat, and I asked mom, how's things? And she said, well, another friend died. And she said, oh, there's this one of my best friends from school just died.
Mhm.
And my response is, well, do you have any friends left? Because for the last 2 years, it seems to me that every week or at least every month that, there's some really sad story about somebody who died, and
Mhm.
or some funeral that happened, or something like that. So I think it helps us to remember that there's no matter how bad it is for us,
Mhm.
there's some poor bastard somewhere who's got it much worse than any of us have got it. So it's always worth remembering that, which should lead us to helping out other people more at the end of the day. Anyway, yeah. So that's my musical past was Queen. That's where all my musical interests and influences and tastes came from. And then Freddie Mercury died, bastard, and and that was the end. That was the end of the creative talent and genius that was
Mhm.
that was Queen.